What's up everyone, John from ARTV. It's time for a review of the fourth studio album by pop rock band Fall Out Boy. This one is called Folie, Deux, aka A Madness Shared by Two. And it is probably driving me mad at this point, the number of requests I have had to talk about this record. Holy shit, I'm talking like every month at least since I started my channel in 2009, like right after the album came out, I've been getting requests. Review Folie, review Folie. Well, today is your lucky day because I am finally on vacation. Time to wind down a little bit and crank out a review of Folie, Deux. Folie, Deux is a very interesting album in Fall Out Boy's discography, mainly because of the fact that it doesn't really fall in line with the rest of the albums that they put out. Not that it totally strayed away from their sound that made them who they are, the superstars. And even the albums after the hiatus that they took after Folie, Deux came out, they went on hiatus in 2009, came back with more of a pop-friendly sound. I think that Folie, Deux is really the main time whenever they really just started reinventing themselves as a band, and it really, really worked. Pete Wentz came through with some of his best lyrics that he has ever penned. And I say that not hating on their earlier albums by any means, because some of those songs were pretty damn clever. But here he writes from not an autobiographical point of view, but from the perspective of someone else, talking about everything from subtle political references to some more commentary on social events that he's seeing, trends in the media, and just with fashion and just the shallowness that he sees in the American society. And that's really interesting to me because I like the fact that they weren't afraid to call people out here. Now, Pete Wentz did pen this album entirely by himself. I'm pretty sure this was before he started collaborating more with like Patrick, Joe, and Andy, the other members of the band, obviously, and some outside co-writers. And it was really interesting because he was going through a rough patch in his own life. And then there's a few references like on tracks like 27, basically saying, I never thought that I would make it to 28 because of the lifestyle that I lead. But it's really interesting to me because he decided that even though he was having this like meltdown with his marriage, a kid was in the mix at this point, Fall Out Boy were exhausted out of their minds considering the consistent touring and all the albums they were putting out, but he took this time in his life to write an album from somebody else's point of view and write about American society and other things, and still managed to make some really, really catchy pop rock and just alternative rock songs. I think overall there's a strong rock sound at its core. There's definitely a lot of guitar driven songs, and I like that about it. I like that Joe Troman really gets his chance to shine here with some heavier riffs that come through on tracks like 27, w.a.m.s, even especially my favorite track on this thing, West Coast Smoker, that closes out that. I love that because we hear some of Pete's screams on that track, and that's something that we don't hear from him often enough, unfortunately. I think my favorite moments on this album come whenever I see them adding in some extra things in the instrumentation, things that you wouldn't necessarily expect from them, like Coffee's for Closer, that opening drum line on that thing that really just starts the driving pace of the track, or just the theatrical vibe that the track that features Brendan Urie of Panic at the Disco, $20 Nosebleed, right near the end of the record. Just an incredible tune that just sounds downright fun, to be quite honest. Things get a little bit messy on Headfirst Slide into Cooperstown on a Bad Bet. I love that track because it's basically talking about an affair, a marriage, and stuff going down the drain, it seems like. And it's a very interesting track just because of this snarky feel that it has. And not to say that a lot of this album doesn't just have that bite and that sneer, because I do feel like they're almost having Patrick Stump sing this with like a slight sinister smile. And I love how that comes through into the music here, especially on like my favorite track on this thing other than West Coast Smoker. It's like a toss-up constantly in my head, the Shipped Gold Standard. On Gold Standard, Stump is singing about the problems that this one person is having, and he tends to pawn them off on other people instead of like owning up to it and doing something for himself, taking up a stand and saying, you know what, I own it, I did this. And this album just in general, I feel like quite often deals with the topic of just being self-involved and putting yourself first and putting like your needs first and what you want to accomplish, like we see on w.a.m.s, I believe that's what that stands for. We see that's a very like hungry track about people wanting to move out to Hollywood. They're gonna make it big, but what makes you so special? That's something that I love because it's just like a total slam to all the people that are just out there in the world just thinking, oh, I'm the shit, I'm the next big thing. And this is just kind of a giant fuck you to at them. There's a handful of reasons why I really enjoy this record, and I think one of the top ones is Patrick Stump's vocals. All throughout, it's some of the best performances of his career right here. On songs like The Ship Gold Standard, which I was just mentioning there, he hits this high register in the chorus of the track that's just absolutely ecstasy on the ears. One of my favorite moments on the entire album. And even on moments like She's My Winona, he does this great thing with his voice. It just seems really catchy, and I love Pete's bass work all throughout as well. It's one of the last times where I feel like we actually truly got some meaty bass lines out of Pete. And of course, I already talked about Joe killing it all throughout with the guitar, just adding in some really cool features, some stuff other than just like chugging, strumming, anything like that. It's actually some inventive stuff going in the background of these tunes. And of course, Andy Hurley, as always, driving it in with his drums. I feel like in later albums, they kind of shifted to more like electronic and just like pop rock peppy drums, but this is something where he came through with some actual solid drum performances. But since I do get so many requests for this album, I wanted to just not only take into consideration my opinion here, I wanted to talk to a really big Fall Out Boy fan, but I couldn't think of who to invite on the show other than Infinity on Hannah. Oh, and here she is, just like that.
What's up?
What are you doing here, Hannah? Oh, that's right, we planned this out in advance.
I'm here.
The magic of the internet. One of my YouTube friends, Hannah, decided to join me for this. If you guys have not checked out Infinity on Hannah before, I would definitely recommend doing so, especially since you're watching a Fall Out Boy review and yours is a play on one of their albums.
Pretty much, if you didn't catch that.
You're a pretty big Fall Out Boy fan. We all know that, Hannah, but
pretty much my favorite band of all time.
Would you say that Folie Deux is one of their better albums or one of their best albums?
I'd say it's probably, I don't know if I could say it's their best, but it's definitely my favorite, I think.
But what makes the album so special to you personally? Like, why'd you connect with it so much?
I've always been drawn to this album. It was actually the first Fall Out Boy CD that I bought, so that's pretty much how I got into them mostly. But I don't know why I'm drawn to it so much. It's just like so different from any of their other stuff in my opinion.
Right.
Like, Infinity was different from their previous stuff as well, but like this one is just so like,
they took a new direction, like a progression.
Yeah,
and
but like in a good way, like it just worked.
They didn't abandon their past sound necessarily, but at the same time they took steps to add extra like horns and stuff on these tracks and like orchestral feelings.
They kind of went out of their comfort zone, but found themselves as well. Like especially Patrick, because I know this was like his baby when they were doing this.
And it just kind of crushed him whenever it got that reception that it got.
I don't know how it got that reception. That like makes me so mad because I do think this is some of their best work. And I have to say that whenever I listen to this album, it's almost like I'm listening to a different band entirely, like a different version of this band that like I never really have seen again.
Right.
Since that time. Like they don't ever talk about this record. They don't really play too much from it.
It's kind of like Pretty Odd with Panic at the Disco, honestly. 2008
kind of
was the year of records that just got dismissed by popular bands.
It's a shame.
And the alternative rock scene.
It's a damn shame because you always hear about like their first two albums
getting
talked
Fever
about.
for Panic, or else, you know, Take This to Your Grave.
And Cork Tree.
Exactly. You want to hear that from them, but what about Folie? This is one that's massively overlooked.
It's definitely underrated. A lot of people probably don't even know any other songs from it besides, like, I Don't Care.
Or America's Sweetheart.
Yeah, like, and those two songs are good. But, like, there's just so many hidden gems in this album, I feel like.
Yeah, that's scratching at the surface, you know? You need to dive in a little bit deeper.
It's just like, please listen to this.
Like, don't listen to I Don't Care and then walk away from the album, because that's not a representation at all.
There's so much on here. And I really do enjoy the whole thing through. Like, we listened to it earlier, and it's just such a pleasurable listen, honestly.
It really is. And I think that what you were kind of touching on there, the reason it sounds so different than anything, I think that we get kind of like character perspectives on this. It's like he's writing from somebody else's point of view instead of his own once. And I think that even though Pete, like, I hate that he was going through such a dark time, but as a lyricist, sometimes that brings out the best in you.
Some of the best lines.
You know? Some of the best lines in their career, honestly. There's moments on here that'll just kind of like, you'll be like,
you have to,
that's
like,
so good.
Go back and, like, I'm going to read that again.
Exactly. I was following along on Genius earlier, like, and I was like, that's a damn clever line.
Yeah, I always find myself doing that, like, rediscovering some of these songs as well.
Because you look at moments like Tiffany Blues, and that's definitely one that I feel like is one of those big moments where we're looking at something from an outside perspective. Definitely. What do you think about that track? Because that was, at the time, a kind of a controversial release for them, considering it features Lil Wayne.
Yeah, I don't know. I've always been a fan of that song, actually. I think it's just a lot of fun to listen to.
It is. It's
The
kind of like
chorus I like
it's
as well.
it's kind of got like a very thick chorus, if that makes
Yeah,
sense.
I think it's really good. One of their like most catchiest
And I think
choruses.
what I don't mind about Lil Wayne being on the track is the sense that it's not his usual feature where he's coming in slurring some words.
Yeah, he's actually like singing.
Yeah, he's kind of
It's
singing.
not just like a.
And it also isn't super noticeable that it's him.
Yeah,
you know,
it's not, like,
Wheezy F baby, come to
And
you know
it
all
also,
that stuff.
It doesn't go on for too long either.
It's a
I
very
think
short.
It's like just enough where I'm not like annoyed.
Right, it's just like the bridge of the track,
Yeah.
and then you're like transitioning
Uh-huh.
back to the chorus again, and you don't even really
Right.
think about it. Bring up some of your other favorites.
Well, I think my favorite track is definitely the opening one, Disloyal Order of Water Buffaloes. I just think that's a really powerful song, and I've actually heard it live one time, which I know they don't really play it. And it's just very powerful. Like the drum in that song, I absolutely love. I pretty much like every single song on here, honestly. It's like impossible for me to pick a favorite.
Well, let me ask you this then. Let me ask your opinion on some of the ones that are definitely kind of like hidden. What about the Ship Gold Standard and like Copies for Closers? Because those are two of my favorite tracks, and they come back to back.
For the Ship Gold Standard, I like how, and I definitely agree with the theme of this song, because it's talking about that you shouldn't blame everything that goes wrong in your life on like other people or the world,
Like
or
look
just
to yourself.
anything else.
That's
Yeah,
the
like
problem.
that's I really like that because I do kind of agree with that. And then for Coffee,
That's one that I feel like often like time and I never hear anybody mention this song. Like for some
yeah.
reason, I don't know why.
That's the same with a lot of these songs.
Honestly, because I love Andy's drumming on this track. It's just
That's
so
one
very
of the
like
more
boom,
powerful-
boom,
yeah,
boom, boom,
it's-
boom. That
it's a
like
lot
kicks
of-
off the track, and that's one of my favorite parts about it because it kind of goes steady all throughout the song. And that's one of those ones that is kind of like relevance equals success. You know, like the spotlight was on Fall Out Boy big time, and the pressure I feel like was probably coming at him to make popular music or make something to a certain standard.
Yeah, like, and without also pressure from the fans or like don't sell out, and that's kind of what happened with this album.
Yeah, because it
ironically,
kind
because
of tanked for them.
and
Unfortunately.
then and at the end of that, they were all just like washed out. Like they're like, I'm done.
Oh yeah, they were probably emotionally drained.
I'm sure.
You know, and just putting something out there that you really believe in like that.
Especially
it was like, you know,
Patrick's effort, because I remember him talking about this album, and he pretty much did, you know, all the instrumentation, like he wrote it all.
right,
And
right.
that just, he always said that like it meant a lot to him, and now like when people ask him about it, he doesn't really ever want to talk about it, and that's a shame, honestly.
Yeah,
'cause
that
it's
you
so
shouldn't
good.
you shouldn't have to be embarrassed of your
Yeah,
work because honestly.
Because it's amazing.
I was about to say,
in my
we're kind of
opinion.
both in agreement that this is some of Fall Out Boy's best work.
Of course.
Easily.
In their discography.
For me, it's usually a toss-up. Like, I wouldn't consider myself necessarily a huge fan of the band like Hannah would, but I've definitely, like, I grew up with them, and some of my favorite records from them came not like their debut. Some people are like, take this to your grave or nothing.
Yeah.
And, you know, like, for me, it's like a toss-up between Infinity on High, Folie, Deux, and Cork Tree for their best records.
Some great records.
And during that time frame, I think that they were like just releasing. That was between 2005 and 2008, a very short span that they released 3 albums.
And they're all killer.
Yeah, they were very, but like you said, they were kind of like
diverse.
They were drained, and this was one that they had so much pressure on them because they had the fans that they had promised that they would get this album out by the end of 2008, and the label was pushing for it to come out in 2009, even because they had originally intended to release it on Election Day in November of 2008, but then they decided that would feel kind of like a shtick, and they didn't want to do it, and they pushed it back, and they were like, we have to have this album out 2008, and so they put it out the day before my birthday, December 16th.
Oh.
Yeah.
Look at that.
I got that album for my birthday in 2008.
That's awesome.
And I was really excited about it at the time. I didn't really appreciate it, I don't feel like, because I didn't understand the lyrics on it really. And I didn't really connect with it like I had some of their previous stuff.
That's
and
like...
I don't think it was as directly catchy, if you know what I mean. You know?
Like, that's like with me, because whenever I got this album, I was like really young, like freaking like 13. So I obviously didn't look into the lyrics as much as I do now, but whenever I come back to this album, I definitely, like, it's become a favorite of mine, if not my most favorite, honestly.
Right. I can remember each step in, I guess, my growing up with Fall Out Boy, and it's just weird to see where that has changed with time for me in terms of, like, what favorite sticks out here and, like, why I don't love Cork Tree as much as I used to, and why maybe Folie and Infinity stand out a little bit more from a musical point of view because I saw them actually taking bigger risks there. And I think that's what disappoints me most about their newer material is that it just feels a little bit more basic and not awful or bad by any means for me. It's just that it doesn't merit repeated. Yeah, exactly. Recycled, and it doesn't merit
typical.
Repeated listens for me. It's
Right.
not something that you come back to as often as you would
But
Folie.
yeah, when you come back to an album like this, like I'm just almost blown away every time. I'm like, wow,
It's an album's
so good.
it's an album's album. I think that could sum up Folie, honestly, because it's one that through and through kind of has a flowing theme with its commentary that it provides, and like I was saying earlier before you came in, just kind of like a snarky feel to it, you know,
Yeah.
like he's calling out people, he's just like done giving a shit and just like, I'm gonna write these songs about what I'm
Yeah.
actually feeling. So overall, for me, I'm gonna have to go ahead and throw out my rating now, and you go ahead and get yours ready. I hope you've got yours ready.
I got it.
4.5 out of 5 for me, honestly, for Folie à Deux. What are you thinking, Hannah?
I was thinking the same, but I'm gonna give it a 5.
You gotta
because,
give it
no,
a
I was
5.
thinking 4.5 before we listened to it today. I hadn't been really listening to it too much in the last like few months, and then I actually recently listened to it, and that just like made me fall in love with it again. I'm like, okay, 5 out of 5.
I hope you guys have been enjoying these throwback reviews, because I've been trying to bring them out as often as possible, and big news soon on the launch of my Patreon account, because we're going to try and make Throwback Thursdays a weekly thing. It's fun to talk about older albums, isn't it?
That's a good idea.
Yeah, it's fun to talk about older albums because
course.
there's really good
It's what
stuff out there
shapes you.
that I've never, what shapes me, or else things that I push myself to branch out and try that maybe I never got around to back in the day. But for today, make sure you check out Hannah. She's linked in the description on Twitter, and of course her channel, which you can subscribe to. You just hit, what,
Pretty please.
8,000?
Yeah,
9,000?
something like that.
Something like that. Let's take her to 9,000 subscribers.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Can we do that? I don't know if we can, honestly. I don't know if I believe in them or not. Make sure you check her out. It's all in the description. Thanks for watching our review of Folie à Deux. Sorry if we went a little bit longer than normal, but you can excuse that for
It means
one
a
of the
lot
most.
to me.
It means a lot to her. It means a lot to you guys because you've been requesting it for so long. And of course, I love the album as well. So thanks for watching, hitting the like button, subscribing to the channel, because friends don't let friends go unsubscribed. You can click directly below me if you would like to see the last video that I did on this channel, or you can head over to my second channel for additional content. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you very soon right here on ARTV.